When you think of penguins, you probably picture cute little guys in tuxedos sliding down ice hills, dancing, and generally having a great time in a winter wonderland. Hollywood has spent decades gaslighting us into believing that being a penguin is fun. We have all seen the family-friendly movies and the beautifully shot nature documentaries, where a calming, majestic voice tells you about the miracle of life on the ice. They make it look like a magical winter wonderland, full of plucky little survivors. But if you are born as an emperor penguin, your life is not a Pixar movie. It is a grueling, agonizing survival horror game set in the most hostile environment on planet Earth, Antarctica, in the dead of winter. You are born into darkness, raised in a giant freezer, and spend your entire adult life balancing on a razor-thin knife's edge between starvation, freezing to death, and being eaten alive. Evolution did not bless this bird. It cursed it. Welcome to the Emperor Penguin experience. Grab a heavy thermal blanket. You are going to need it. Our story starts in April. For most animals around the globe, this is spring, a time of life, blooming flowers, and warmth. For the emperor penguin, it is the beginning of a living hell. As the Antarctic winter sets in, the ocean surrounding the continent freezes over. While any sane, self-preserving animal would swim north to warmer waters to escape, the emperor penguin looks at the impending doom of a minus 60 degrees Celsius winter and says, yeah, let's walk directly into the middle of it. They begin what is famously known as the March of the Penguins, but calling it a march makes it sound organized, rhythmic, and majestic. In reality, it is a 50 to 100 mile death slog across brutally jagged sea ice. You have to remember their anatomy. These birds have solid, heavy bones designed to make them sink like torpedoes in the water. They have short, stubby little legs meant for steering, not for hiking across a fractured, frozen wasteland. The ice is not a smooth skating rink. It is heavily deformed, full of sharp ridges and massive ice boulders. They trip, they fall on their faces, and they drag their heavy bodies forward one miserable step at a time. Why do they subject themselves to this absolute torture? Because if they lay their eggs near the coast, the shifting, unstable ice will crack and drop the newborn babies directly into the freezing, lethal ocean. So they must walk miles inland to thick, solid ice. They are literally marching into a barren, predator-free desert of absolute nothingness, solely because it is the only place on Earth miserable enough to remain completely frozen all year round. Once they finally arrive at the breeding ground after weeks of exhausting travel, it is time to find a mate. Keep in mind, they have not eaten a single thing since they left the ocean weeks ago. They pair up, do a desperate little courtship dance, and mate. But here is where the male emperor penguin officially signs up for the absolute worst fatherhood experience in the entire animal kingdom. The female lays a single, massive egg. Developing that egg takes an immense physical toll on her body, burning through basically all of her remaining fat reserves. She loses a third of her body weight just creating it. If she stays at the colony, she will simply starve to death. So she has to leave. She looks at the male, hands him the egg, and immediately turns around to walk the exact same 100 miles back to the ocean to get some food. But the egg transfer between the parents is completely terrifying. The egg cannot, under any circumstances, touch the ice. If it slips and is exposed to the brutal Antarctic air for more than a few agonizing seconds, the fragile embryo inside will freeze solid, dying instantly. The male has to perfectly, carefully roll the egg onto the top of his feet and cover it with a thick, feather-lined flap of belly skin called a brood pouch. Once that egg is securely on his feet, his fate is sealed. He is trapped. He cannot walk properly. He cannot leave to find food. He cannot even lie down to rest. He just has to stand there and wait. Now begins the true, unadulterated nightmare. As May turns into June, the sun dips below the horizon, and it sets, and it does not come back up for months. The males are plunged into 24/7 pitch-black darkness. The temperature plummets to a mind-numbing minus 60 degrees Celsius. Merciless blizzards blast them with wind speeds, reaching up to 200 kilometers per hour. That is Category 3 hurricane force wind, but made of freezing ice crystals that act like tiny daggers trying to shred their feathers. To survive this frozen apocalypse, the males form a massive, tightly packed mosh pit called a huddle. Inside the dead center of the huddle, it is surprisingly warm, sometimes even reaching an uncomfortable 37 degrees Celsius. It is actually so hot in the middle that the birds get overheated and have to eat snow just to cool down. But if you are the unlucky penguin stuck on the outside edge of this giant mass, you are taking the full, brutal force of the Antarctic winter directly to the face. To keep everyone alive, they slowly rotate. They shuffle mere inches at a time, moving continuously from the freezing outside edge, pushing slowly into the warm inside, and eventually getting pushed back out again. It is a slow-motion dance of misery. And remember, every single one of these males is balancing an egg on his feet the entire time. If a male trips in the crushing pressure of the crowd, the egg rolls away and is instantly lost to the freezing dark. By the time the sun finally starts to peek over the horizon in August, bringing a tiny sliver of light, the males have been fasting for nearly 120 days. Let that sink in. 4 months with zero food. They lose up to half of their entire body weight. Their bodies begin metabolizing their own muscle tissue just to keep the internal furnace burning. They are emaciated, exhausted, sleep-deprived, and running purely on the blind biological instinct to keep that weird little rock on their feet warm. Finally, the egg hatches. But wait, the mother is not back from the ocean yet. The tiny, naked, completely helpless chick is hungry, and the father has not eaten a single morsel in 4 months. He is a walking skeleton. So, what does he do? His body performs a horrifying biological magic trick. He literally digests parts of his own esophagus to create a thick, fat-rich, milky substance called crop milk. He then violently regurgitates this fluid directly into the baby's mouth. He is literally feeding his newborn child the dissolving lining of his own throat just to keep it alive for a few more days. It is the ultimate, grotesque sacrifice. Assuming the mother does survive her trip, just as the males are on the absolute brink of falling over and dying of starvation, the females finally return. They are fat, happy, and their stomachs are completely full of freshly caught fish. They take over baby duty, regurgitating real food for the chick. Now, the males, weighing less than a middle schooler's backpack and looking absolutely pathetic, must begin their own trek. They have to walk the same 100 miles back to the ocean. Many simply do not make it. Their bodies finally give out. They collapse on the unforgiving ice, and they quietly die of exhaustion right there in the snow. Meanwhile, the chicks that survive are constantly targeted by giant petrels and skuas, massive, aggressive, predatory birds that swoop down from the sky. If a chick wanders even a few feet away from its parents, these birds will land, peck it to death, and eat it alive right in front of the colony. There is no peace here. But for those starving males who do miraculously reach the water, salvation awaits, right? Food, glorious, calorie-dense fish, an end to the 4-month starvation marathon. Wrong. Waiting patiently for them right at the edge of the ice are leopard seals. These are massive, 10-foot long, incredibly aggressive apex predators with jaws like a bear. They know exactly when the penguins are coming. They have been waiting all winter for these weak, agonizingly slow, starving birds to jump into the water. After surviving 4 grueling months of freezing darkness, literal starvation, and the absolute worst babysitting gig on the planet, many of these males are instantly shredded to pieces the literal second they hit the water. The pristine blue ocean turns red in an instant. If a male somehow manages to dodge the jaws of the seals, he gorges himself on fish, desperately trying to regain his lost body mass. But his freedom is short-lived. He only has a brief window to eat before he has to swim all the way back to the colony to tag out the females so they can eat again. And the vicious, unending cycle of icy misery continues. So, let us review the Emperor Penguin experience one last time. You are born into a desolate, frozen desert. Your parents immediately abandon you to go gorge themselves.
If you are lucky enough to survive to adulthood without freezing or being eaten by a giant seagull, your reward is standing in a pitch-black, freezing mosh pit for 4 consecutive months. You starve yourself half to death. You feed your baby your own throat flesh. And then you have to run a gauntlet of 1,000-pound murder seals just to get a single bite of food. Evolution did not give the emperor penguin a biological niche. It gave it a maximum security prison sentence. It is a life of pure, uninterrupted suffering, masked by a cute tuxedo. If you enjoyed watching me completely tear apart your childhood illusions of happy, dancing penguins, do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button. It costs you absolutely nothing, and I promise you, it is way easier than balancing an egg on your feet in the middle of a Category 3 freezing blizzard. Leave a comment below on what miserable animal you want to see get roasted next. Until then, take a deep breath, appreciate the warmth of your room, and be extremely thankful you were born human. See ya.